guess what? I have a brand new episode of Retro Life Reviews. It's been a long time, and I'm going to be introducing my good friend and co-host of that show, the one we're talking right now on, CK.
Hello, and welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, welcome back. So much has changed since we've done a retro review. So let's get started, not delay. We'll be reviewing the classic game for the NES, Unser Jr. Turbo Racing for the NES. I just said that. So here we go. Without further ado, let's start the review now. We've been waiting too long already.
So Today we're reviewing the classic NES game, Unser Jr. Turbo Racing. The game was released in 1990 for the NES, and it's actually an adaptation of the '89 Japanese market game for the Famicom called World Grand Prix. The only difference between the two, really, is that for North America, Unser Jr. has been included in the Japanese market, and in other markets, Unser was not. And other than that, it plays like a classic from behind car racing game, like a lot of NES games were back in those days.
Alright, so we're going to start with graphics first. So what did you think of the graphics in this game, CK?
The graphics are very NES of that era. Even though it is, later in the 1990s, it does still feel and look like a first year, second year game. Very simple, very basic. The interface is a nice kind of cockpit looking thing, and they use the shades really well in it to get the representation of the console and the speedometer. And even your little racer's helmet, it has a little profile helmet on the side. It doesn't look bad at all. If anything, it kind of looks like an old facsimile or a printout from back in that day. They did a good job with the game, and it's hard to really grade it on anything else, that is not NES. Because it's simple, but it does get the job done. So for me, I really enjoyed it, and I believe that it deserves a double like.
Alright, so graphics for me, basic colors, basic look. Not a big fan of those era racing games. I'm going to try not to give it a retro loathing scores on the way here. Like, it's not a loathing video. I did have this game as a kid on my NES, but there's very little nostalgia for me because I don't think I really got into the game, and I didn't really think I liked it as much as I wanted to like it at the time. Graphics are just basic, nothing special, even for that era. I mean, it looks okay. I mean, it's not terrible. I just don't think the racing games aged well. Obviously, if we're looking at a lens of the 1980s, 90s, it's a product of its time. I'm going to give it a retro half-like for graphics.
All right.
I'm being hard on it.
You're not being hard on it. You're being honest with it, right?
Yeah, honesty is important. So, moving on to music and sound effects. What did you think of the music and sound effects in Unser Jr.?
I like the sound effects. I don't like the music. So this is kind of a hard one for me because I think there's going to be a split in how I'm going to grade it. Obviously, I have to give it one score, but the music is the over and over, especially the interface screen where you select the modes. That same music over and over that just loops over and over. I don't even think it's like 30 seconds long. It's so annoying. But in game, with regards to the sound effects, when you're turning fast and the car has to, it starts losing traction, you start hearing squealing. In every racing game, it's very important that you can hear the car. You can hear the revs in the engine. You can also hear your traction, because those audible cues usually kick in before the visual cues and allow you to maneuver the car the way you need to. So if I had to put it together, I don't like the music, but I do like the sound effects. So I'm going to go down the middle and give it a retro like.
Alright, so music and sound effects for me. I actually the opposite of this. I like the music a little bit better than the sound effects. There were some moments I actually was listening to on the playing the game and listening to it even on YouTube to see a little more gameplay or a little bit of more sections that I maybe didn't play.
Yeah.
And I actually thought the music was actually quite good for a game of that era, and it wasn't like anything catchy, crazy. amazing music like Mario or Contra or anything like that, but it didn't annoy me, and that's always good for me, because if I'm
Yes.
annoyed, I'm not going to like it. So there's a lot of music on the NES that I hate and I can't stand, and I would definitely turn it off, and this one I didn't, so that's how I'm going to review it. So if it didn't annoy me and I didn't want to turn it off, it's a good thing. So I'm going to give it a retro double like for music.
Okay.
Alright, so moving on to gameplay. What'd you think of the gameplay in this game, CK?
Well, this is where it shines for me as a fan of racing games in general, and even going back to this era of gaming and era of consoles. A lot of the games were from behind. You moved left, you moved right. There were many different courses. The great thing about this game that I think makes it stand out more than some of the other general racing games for the NES era is that, one, it has those two modes I mentioned earlier in the intro. There's a season mode, like a World Championship mode, where you play through different races. And there are 16 races or tracks within each season, and included but not limited to popular tracks like Monza, Spa, Adelaide, Silverstone, Monaco. Anybody who knows racing and anybody who follows Formula One will know a lot of these tracks. Anyone who follows any type of racing, automotive sports, will know a lot of these tracks. That was pretty cool. That was a huge part of why I love the game. Two, the challenge of controlling a car at high speeds in general. And I know I'll get to the control part and I'll discuss it more, but that's also a big part of the gameplay for me that really made it enjoyable. And it's challenging. It truly is a challenging game for as simple it is as it is. And because of all of those things combined, I give gameplay a retro love. Not a double love, but just a love.
No. Yeah, double love might be pushing it, but yeah, love is good. Love is good. Yeah, gameplay for me, I don't have as much experience with the game as you do, even though I did grow up with it. I guess I just didn't play. I think it was one of the last games I had on the NES before I got into the Sega Genesis, so I really wasn't that enthusiastic with the NES at the time.
Right.
Gameplay for me, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of modes, there's a lot of variations for that type of game in that era. That's impressive. You have to give it props for that, what they did to make it as deep as it was at the time on a cartridge with the NES 8-bit. Very simplistic. That's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. So but I don't really have a lot of experience, and I didn't really dive into the game as much as I maybe would have liked to have. I played some races, I raced it a little bit to just get tested a bit because it's been a long time since I played it. But the gameplay for me, it's nothing blowing my mind. I'll just give it a like for gameplay.
No, that's fair.
Try to be fair.
That's the idea, right? Honest and fair. That's all we can ask.
So moving on to controls. What did you think of the controls in this game?
The controls were pretty damn simple in this game. One thing that makes the controls interesting and challenging, like you had mentioned just earlier about them fitting all these things in the game and trying to replicate an actual driving simulation in an 8-bit simplified game on a cartridge with very limited memory, is that there are two speeds that your car can race in, the low and a high gear. And obviously with low gear you have more control but less speed. With high gear you have more speed, less control. And it's a mixture of both. Being able to go into a corner, having to quote-unquote downshift while braking or getting off the accelerator, hitting the corner, knowing that your car's going to slide, maneuvering through vehicles. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm like a race buff. And even games as simple as this truly gave me that type of joy and experience with racing. And the controls in this game are tight. Like, they work the way they should. The car feels the way it should under high and low power, and even with all the simplicity, it's still a joy to play because it is simple. And because of all those things, I love racing. I'm sorry. The game, I give controls a retro love.
Yeah, I sense the passion there, CK. You're gonna be definitely a high compared to me. You're definitely the high. But yeah, that's why we picked this one, because you love racing, and we never did a racing game on our channel. On my channel. Alright, so controls for me. Yeah, I think the controls are very very good for this game, and I'm not a very good racing game guy. I always, me, played a few times together, and you know that I don't know how to stay on the road, and I don't know how to slow down. And in modern racing games, I definitely spin out, and I definitely hit things. And Grand Theft Auto, you don't even want to see me play that.
No, I don't.
Yes, I am a hazard on the roads in video games. I just don't even stop for anything or anyone, and I crash into everything and everyone. But in this game, I felt I wasn't swerving a lot. I wasn't, it seems like the controls are really good. I was gonna say tight. I might as well say it again. It's been a long time since I said the word tight on this channel, but yeah, the controls are good. They're solid, and I had no issues with spinning that often out of control. I think I was making those turns pretty good, and the shifting, I was making sure to shift. I still lost a lot of races for some reason, but I guess maybe just I still have a level of expertise that I need to acquire, or skill that I don't have yet to make me win more races in this game, because it's still a pretty deep game. But we're talking controls, not the deepness of the game. Controls, do the job, and they're not sloppy or loose, and that's all you could ask for in a game. And NES. A lot of those games, some games are hit and miss, some games have terrible controls, but this one doesn't. So I'm going to give the controls a retro love.
Hey.
Yeah, it sounded like a love, so I'm going to love.
I'm glad you enjoyed the controls. I mean, a lot of the games back then did feel like that, but especially some of the racing games, and I think this is probably one of the better ones at controls. But anywho, let's move on.
Yes, moving on to, let's see, difficult. All right, moving on to the difficulty. What do you think of the difficulty in Unser Jr, CK?
Well, if I were to grade difficulty, the higher the difficulty, the higher the grade, this game would get a high grade, because it is a difficult game. As you can attest to it, and as a seasoned gamer like myself, and especially a racing veteran as myself, still having to struggle a bit with certain courses at certain speeds in certain situations. It's always different, and that's the thing I love about racing games, is that it's always different, right? It's never just easy. It can be easy, but it could also be difficult, and difficulty in this game works so well. For someone that isn't really good at controlling racing games, it's going to be a challenge. I'll say it straight up. But for those that are very familiar with the left and right, understanding how the car slides under certain speeds and how to maneuver between the, I don't want to call it AI racers, they're more kind of like programmed racers. Anytime you get near them, they happen to shift over to get in front of you, so you have to counter around them and stuff like that. The game is difficult enough, and because of those variations, plus the seasons and the racing game modes, which add to the challenge of racing and the variety, I don't know how to say it. It's just that it gets a retro love from me. Difficulty works in this game.
Yeah, well, that's all you could ask for. And you love racing games, and this game is one of those, I guess, early racing games that you can enjoy still, even though it's dated, obviously, but it's got some difficulty that's not too easy, so you have a little challenge, which makes it good.
Yes.
All right. Difficulty for me. I'm not gonna go as deep as you are. This is just gonna be a straightforward. Whether I think it's difficult or not, most racing games are difficult for me. I suck at them. I really do. I don't really. It's tough for me to get into those games, because I feel like I don't have the skill to maneuver the wall and turns and everything. Although the controls, as I said, were very tight and I liked them, I gave them a good score. Difficulty for me, I do find this game quite difficult, and I don't have the patience to play a game from this era and really dive into it, because I'm not a huge racing game fan. I do prefer playing a game that's more modern, realistic for racing games. I do like racing games, but newer racing games, like the modern style. I got into racing games more or less in the Genesis era and the PlayStation 1 era when I got PlayStation 2 when I got into the Gran Turismos, and that really blew my mind. So this game, yeah, look, I'm not talking about those games. I just branched out. I'm gonna have to stay on topic.
Yes.
Difficulty for me, it's a difficult game. with the fact that I don't have the patience. I know I shouldn't use that as an excuse. It's just not the game's fault that I hate racing games in this era, but I'm going to punish it a little bit. I'm going to give difficulty a retro half-like.
Oh.
I was very hard on it for difficulty. I know.
Well, it's fair. Again, your opinion is honest and fair, right?
Yes, honest and fair to a point. Alright, well, moving on to fun factor. What do you think of the fun factor of this game? I really think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Because the people want to hear the answer.
Well, that's the point. We're reviewing it. They don't know you like I do, but I know where it's going to go. But anyways, go on.
The game is fun, period. If you enjoy racing, and if you have a bit of a nostalgia for the classic controlled racing games, whether they're top-down, or whether they're isometric, or whether or not they are, from behind, chase car style, all the games back then were good. The 8-bit era, the 16-bit era, the 32-bit era, and I don't think there is a racing game that I can say I really don't like. And only until the modern games with like the ATV and the Sea-Doo stuff, the games got okay, but the variety was too much for me. I just want to race a car or race a motorbike, and right now it is fun with this game, and you guys know the answer. Fun gets a retro love for me. It's just a fun game for those that love racing and those that love classic simple controls. And those that love a little bit of a challenge, even though it's an older game, this is a great racing experience. Period.
Got it. Why not a retro double love?
Because there's still a bit of a challenge and there's still a bit of anger that threads through my enjoyment of this game. So it doesn't get a full-on I admire and I adore and I want this energy. It gets annoying, and I'll have to turn off the game eventually. But while I'm in it and I'm doing well, I love it.
Alright, fun factor for me. We're definitely seeing this game a little bit differently. That's fine. That's great about these reviews, is that we don't have the same opinion on all the games, which is awesome, because that would be very boring reviews and nobody would want to watch that. I don't want to record that. Would you? I don't think so.
No.
Exactly. So fun factor, that's not the reason why we haven't done it in a while, that we don't enjoy this. But fun factor for me, I did not have a lot of fun with this game, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I didn't really have a lot of fun with it when I first got it. I guess I felt it wasn't the kind of game that I really enjoyed at the time. It was basic for me. I didn't really dive into it. I know I'm using my bias from the past, from my younger self, but it's going to apply to this game because my history with the game, playing it now, I didn't have a lot of fun.
Right.
There's fun elements. I mean, I can see, I like the music, I like the controls, but overall, it bores me. Sorry, I just get bored,
Nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing wrong with that.
I like a game that's more realistic. I like better graphics. And at the time, I was a graphics snobby kind of guy back then. I mean, obviously, at the time, they were, perfectly fine for its generation.
Yep.
But it didn't hook me the way other racing games, did on the Sega Genesis. I make it sound like I hate racing games at the time. I did seek racing games. I had other racing games on the Genesis. Eric Senna, I believe it was,
yes,
for the
Eric
Genesis.
Senna.
Eric Senna
right,
2. Yeah, I actually enjoyed that game a lot. If we were reviewing that, I would give it a great score for fun. But anyways, we're reviewing this game. This game gets a retro half-like for fun factor. I was toying with a retro Loath, but that would be cruel because it's not a retro Loath. It's just not fun for me. Alright, moving on to replay value. What'd you think of the replay value in this game? Under a minute, please.
The replay value it's there. It depends, again, on how much time you invest and how much fun you're actually having. I think any game with regards to replay value comes down to those major factors. And for the most part, I have fun with Unser Jr. in spurts. I'll go in and I'll play the game for a bit, and then I'll put it down for a while, and I'll come back and play it for a bit. So replay value is up there, but it's not up there. And because of that, it gets a retro-like.
Alright, retro-like. Awesome. Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought you were going to give a little bit more for that replay value. You threw me a loop there, CK.
Yeah, I do that sometimes.
Keeps me on my toes. Alright, so replay value for me, I think you know where I'm going with this. I don't think it's got much replay value. I struggled to play it the first time. I'm not replaying it again.
Right.
And again, not bashing the game. I just don't think these games have aged very well. and also at the time I think they were very simplistic in the look of the game and the style and just the graphical style and just the way it played. I just didn't enjoy it at the time, so I'm not going to enjoy it this time, and I'm not going to replay it. So replay value is going to be extremely low. I am going to have to give it a low for replay value. I apologize. I didn't want to use the Loath, but there's a Loath coming and it already hit. So it's a retro Loath for replay value. It's a 1.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You're trending towards that anyway. So I'm glad we finally hit the point and you're being honest with yourself and honest with us.
I was not that I was planning on giving it a low, but I just had to be honest in how I felt, and yeah, the replay value isn't there. It's not a game that I'm going to pick up and play, let alone twice, you know? So that's how I feel, and I was going to go double low, but I just thought that's just too harsh. You know, it's just too harsh. It's too harsh. So, alright, so this is the portion of the review where we rate the influence. Are we still doing that, CK?
I believe we are.
Alright, so what do you think on a scale of 1 to 2, or 0 to 2?
Yes, 0
What do
to
you
2.
think of the influence in this game?
This game, the influence is there, especially with regards to putting a big racer's name on games going forward in the racing game generations, because there were a lot of racing games out there that just were names, but putting someone's name on a game was a twofold. One, it helped the racers' awareness, and two, it helped sell the game. It has some influence in the racing games of the future. I give it a 1.
Awesome. Well, I don't agree. So, but that's okay. I don't have the statistics and I don't have the knowledge of the history of racing games as you do. I'm sure there's some truth to that. I personally don't really think it had much of influence because we don't talk about this game today. There's no sequels, and that's how I look at influence, sequels, and games that maybe emulated it in a way. But then again, it's not as influential as a game like Gran Turismo, so I'm going to give it a 0 because I'm comparing it to Gran Turismo, but
Right.
which is unfair to the game. But I don't think it had that much influence. Alright, so this is the portion review where we flip a coin and see who gets to choose the next Retro Life review. So I believe I flipped last time, but it's so long ago. I'm just going to be a gracious host and give you the flip, CK.
Oh.
I'm trying to get my karma, my retro flipping karma up. So let's see. So you get the flip. You're high, and heads as high as always. So flip away.
Are we going to choose the games?
Oh, sorry, yeah. Alright, before we flipped, I forgot we gotta choose the games. It's been a long time, so I'll let you go first, because I'm a gentleman. What's the game you pick, CK?
I'm choosing Star Force for the NES.
Alright, and I will pick Metal Warriors for the Super NES, a game that I really enjoyed in my RL plays. I had a blast with that game, it was awesome, so I want to review it with you.
Okay.
Alright, so now we flip and see which game gets to be chosen.
All right. And flipping. It has landed on Tails.
Oh wow, I won. That's
like
so
you
weird.
live-
I never win.
You didn't seem surprised. It's almost like you were dumbfounded that you didn't lose.
Yeah, I honestly, people who haven't listened to any of our Retro Life reviews in the past, people who are new, I don't win a lot of coin flips. My retro coin flip is really bad karma, apparently, because I think you get 90% of the flips are on your favor,
They
you know?
usually are,
Anyway,
yeah.
so I'm going to choose the game that I want to choose, and it's going to be Metal Warriors for
All right.
the Super NES. Alright, so I'm excited. I think you're going to love that game. It's a really fun game for the Super NES.
All right. Sounds good. I'm excited.
I think one of the great things of the RL plays for me is that I'm experiencing games I never heard of before, and it's fun to play games that are obscure that you never heard of, you know? Something unique. And a lot of the games that I played before, like, we like to review games that we played. I think it's the opposite of the Retro Life reviews. We kind of want to review games that we have experience with or have enjoyment with.
Right.
But it's nice to mix it up. Alright, so that's all for now. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Retro Life Review. Let's not wait so long for next one. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Alright, on that note, I will have more retro content in the weeks, months, and years to come. Bye for now.
Ciao, folks.